Hey, welcome everyone to Creativity-Hive's weekly program. We are in episode 112. Go us. My name is Miriam Haugen. I'm part of the Creativity-Hive team. We help creatives learn to make impactful storytelling videos through one-on-one teaching and live group coaching. And our weekly hangout brings you people that are working in all forms of motion media, from broadcasting, video, and all the related industries from across the globe. Be sure and leave a comment and tell us where you're joining from. Today we have Benjamin here. Let's bring him on the screen. Ta-da! Hello, hello.
Hi.
So we have kind of a difficult subject maybe to talk about, but some of the challenges that are facing people working in video these days. But tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Sure. My name is Ben. I'm located in the San Francisco area. I used to work in tech a long time ago. When I first out of college, I started working in film, and I worked on sets as a PA. And I really liked that environment, but I had bills to pay, so I ended up in the Bay Area. I got a job in tech, and I did that for like 5 or 6 years. And then I got tired of working at Tech Life. I was doing a QA stuff, so somebody who tests the same thing over and over again to find bugs and stuff like that. And I wasn't feeling fulfilled creatively. So this was around 2009 when the economic downturn happened and there were a lot of layoffs. So I got laid off, and then I decided, you know what, I'm going to follow my dream. I love video. I like editing, that creative process of sitting behind a computer and seeing our projects go from start to finish, because that was one thing that bugged me about working on productions. Like, you work on a film set and then you're done. You don't get to work on the finishing the final product. So I really liked editing for that reason. And I did, so my first real job was working for a company that got bought by a big corporation that's worth like billions of dollars. I'm going to try to not say names just for like NDA purposes. But so it was nice when it was small, but when the bigger corporation took over, then it became less fun, more structured. And because it's a media job, it felt like there was a lot of changes constantly going on. Like, there were changes in leadership all the time. I think in the 4.5, 5 years there were 6 mass layoffs of like people. So like every single time one of those happens, you're wondering if you're going to get laid off or like you're going to be next, and it totally kills morale. And then like eventually it just kills your interest in working for that company, because it's just like, it's such a grind on you mentally. Even though I love the work, like I really enjoyed working on science-based stuff. So that was, I love the work. It was all the background, like over the stuff way above pay grade that I just didn't like. So from there, I worked at a nonprofit for a year, which was for a cause for a clean energy cause. So I really believed in that. But the problem with working for a nonprofit, and it was a really small nonprofit, it was like 4 people. Like, you really need everybody to like pull their weight and like to have a clear vision. And I felt like we didn't have that. So I really soured on that after like 6 months to a year, because it was kind of directionless in terms of what was for me to work on. And from there, through contacts at my big corporation company, I went to another company that works in media, making documentaries and trailers for YouTube. And I really enjoyed that work. But then there were a few mergers that happened. I was there for like 5 years, and there were a few mergers that happened, and every single time, again, same thing. You were waiting to see if you get laid off or not. And eventually, about half a year ago, I got laid off. And then I kind of knew it was coming, because when we merged, like I had a counterpart at the other company, and I knew probably one of us was going to be made redundant, and I was making more money. So I kind of knew it was coming, and I don't really blame them for that reason, but it still sucks.
Right.
And from there, I really like, so this was 6 months ago. I really took a hard look at where I was in life and like, do I really want to stick it out in video editing, or do I want to make a career change now? Because in the Bay Area, the job market for video editing is really brutal. Like there's nothing available. And even if there is, it generally is a big step down in salary and responsibility. And at that point, you're like wondering, it's like, well, do I really want to keep doing this? Because I'm in like, there's not a lot of film jobs and there's a lot of tech jobs in the Bay Area. And tech pays way better than video, even with like 10 plus years of experience. So salary wise, since I'm not in LA and like probably other markets where it's more standardized, the salary was really low. When I first started off in video editing, I was freelancing for 20 an hour. And I mean, I was happy to get anything I could because I was doing a career transition. So I wanted experience and to build up like a website of like a portfolio of work.
Right.
And eventually when I was made full time, I was hoping for more, but I got 45,000 and they were very firm about that. And 45,000 in San Francisco
doesn't go very far, I'll bet.
No, not at all. And so, yeah, like, and me and the other editors, like, we really kept trying to push for more salary. But then they were talking about how there was, so the parent company bought another media company in LA, and they were saying the video editors there were making minimum wage. And it was for like a digital only YouTube thing. And so they were like, well, if they were working on paying editors more, they get priority. So it was like, yes, they totally deserve more money, but it's also like, but what about us? It's kind of like, we're going to work on them, but you get it eventually. But we never really did. I got one raise to like 60,000, but like at that point, it's still very like that was after years of asking for raises.
So. Oh, wow, and that's still hard, I'll bet, in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, okay, so what is? Okay, I actually have somebody in the green room I've got to bring on. Are you ready?
Okay.
We got, he's combing his hair. He's making sure he looks presentable.
Yeah, you said I was in the green room.
You know, now he's actually in our rather, it's not looking too bad, our family room where we had to stash. We went through a move of our business. And so a lot of things are still in transition. He's got all of his gear piled on a table behind him.
My entire setup, all of my video, camera gear, lights, sound equipment, everything is piled either on the floor or on top of the pool table behind me. And I've got 3 of my 4 monitors actually set up at the moment for my video stuff, because I do most of the video post testing these days. And but I don't have the 4th one up, so that does limit for what I'm used to. And I've got a button box I use along with my big tangent control surface, and I don't have room to set that up on this little thing. And so it'll be another month or so probably before I have my office really set up, but I'm sort of semi-functional.
Yeah, this is the first time I've seen him sitting at this desk. But anyway, back to Ben here.
Yep.
So, we could get into the whole, all the factors we've touched on a little bit. Are these people in LA that were working for minimum wage? Are they like people that just got out of film school? Or
yep. Exactly. Like I think
just looking for foot in the door.
Yeah, and I think it's also how people who work in the digital space, like people who make stuff for YouTube, are kind of looked down on, like in terms of salary ranges and stuff like that. They're like, oh, you work on stuff for YouTube, we're gonna pay you little because like it's just digital. It's not like film or television or something like that. So I'll wait for the fire truck.
Right. Well, that gives a little urban feel to the whole thing.
I deal a lot with colorists, and of course, colorists are not unionized.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and a couple of them are a couple of the more major colorists on the street, as it's called in LA. And they make a good living, but they're very open about trying to move your way up as a colorist, especially these days. That's a real challenge,
Yeah.
and you'll have so many people wanting to do it. Uh,
Yeah.
it's very frustrating.
Yeah, and I think there were a few media companies that were trying to unionize, like BuzzFeed and Vox employees were trying to unionize. I think they got it through, but like management obviously was trying to bust them for that. And yeah, and like nowadays, if you're a beginning editor, I feel like you're expected to know like everything. Like you have to know sound, you have to know After Effects, you have to like do motion graphics, like you have to do illustrations sometimes, like coloring, like yeah. It's getting more and more responsibility and seeing less and less pay.
Less and less pay, and an awful lot of you mentioned a bit ago about well, it's just for YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, if it's just for YouTube,
Mhm.
then the quality can be so yeah, they expect you to do a whole bunch of things, and they don't necessarily expect you to do any of them that well.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating.
Yeah, and I will say there's a certain aesthetic for YouTube. Like it can't look too Hollywood, or else it looks off. Like if there's like a huge, like blurred backgrounds, like really good quality, like focus and stuff like that, then it just on YouTube it kind of looks weird because people are used to crappier quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go for the YouTube look, which is low quality.
Yeah.
That's funny. So there's a lot of, I wonder if we should touch on some of the pressures on the industry right now, like the writers strike and everything that's going on, which I know didn't directly affect your job, but were you kind of affected offhand from that?
Oh, like working at a big corporation, no, because like they own us pretty much. But I did have a lot of friends who work in the industry, and they said like work has really slowed down, or they have to like move to doing more like documentaries or reality-based shows, which don't require writers and like SAG actors and stuff like that. So I'm getting a little bit of imposter syndrome just because I don't know what it's like for the LA markets and the bigger like television and film thing. So that's what I'm hearing. So it's all secondhand.
Right.
But that's my experience. And that's one of the things I like working for a big corporation, just because it has its issues, but like there is a certain amount of safety that you're insulated from like stuff like that. Because I care about the writers and the actors getting their fair share. But also like if like my livelihood was dependent on working, and like I don't know how long, like my friend who works on production sets, like I think he's been out of work for like 6 months now or something, however long these strikes have been going on with no end date. And like that's got to be really rough for people who like need that money for rent.
Yeah.
The production crews have been totally hammered.
Yeah.
In this whole thing, and that has been rough. Well, it is, your whole thing about working for a major corporation, there is a large bit about that, especially if you're in the production of their socials and whatnot, because that's something they know they've got to have.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a sense of stability there if there's not always the best recognition of your efforts.
Mm-hmm.
In the general production, some of the discussions I've been in on, some of these people think, oh, that the major streaming services and everything, they've got billions of dollars they could be paying if they want to do to this. And no, actually, you look at their overall financials, and there's a reason why they're dumping shows and shedding this and that, is because they work on this strange model that isn't based on what their actual profit is.
Yeah.
And most of the streaming services have never actually made a profit on what they do. And they've been able to get financing and funding by more people putting money into it because, well, this is going to be profitable at some point.
Yeah. They're paying for speculation, and it could work out like that's what Amazon did. They lost money for like decades, just because they're like, oh, if we get market share, eventually we'll own the market. And like, I feel like that's true for a lot of media companies, like especially, well, at the science company I worked at, they spent a lot of money on VR and 360 when it was first new, because they were like, oh, this is a new technology. If we're first, then we can be the market leaders. So they spent a lot of resources just getting like all the cameras and training everybody, and like a lot of executives left and formed their own like VR 360 companies, thinking it was going to be the next big thing. But it's also like these are all like business people who have like work on the business side and aren't really in tune with what audiences want. And I feel like the big issue with 360 is it's very cumbersome, and not everybody's going to look at a video with a headset or buy additional stuff in order to view it. And if they do view it, it's going to probably view it once, so there's not a lot of replayability. There's I feel like a lot of places don't really optimize for 360 stuff. Like they work on it, but it's still, you're intended to look just straight ahead as opposed to like fully looking around all the time. So we like that company poured a lot of money into that, and then when there wasn't that much adoption by the audience, like I feel like you'd never really see VR 360 stuff on YouTube anymore. And like, so they had a bunch of layoffs after that.
2016, going down to NAB and National Association of Broadcasters, huge show in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 3D was just supposedly the big thing. It was everything was all about 3D and whatnot. And I was going,
yeah,
I'm kind of curious about this. Okay, so Miriam and I went down in April. First time I've ever been able to get Miriam to actually join me for NAB. And gee, Miriam, did we see a whole lot of 3D stuff around?
No.
Nope. There were a few booths that had stuff for 3D and 360, but it's very much a specialist niche thing. Avatar, a few other things like that have done it for movies. Very few movies are in 3D.
Yeah.
And it's a much more complicated workflow. It takes all kinds of extra gear. And considering most people watch stuff on their tablets or phones,
yeah,
3D.
Yeah, and if you look at the numbers, like we had the cool thing about working there is we have the demographics, so you could see like what type of users look at the media on what device, and the vast majority of people now look at videos on their phones, and it's vertical on your phone, not like horizontal. So you really have to like that's why a lot of social videos are like vertical now, and like people have a very short attention span, and they prefer stuff like that, and it's like they prefer text on screen, and it's been the way it is for like, I don't know, like 5 years now. And
our daughter-in-law, if you're sitting there visiting with her, she'll be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. And she'll be talking about things with you.
Mm-hmm.
But you look over her shoulder and you see she's got some video that she's watching. With her, it's typically more into sports or whatnot. She's not much of a girly girl,
mm-hmm.
but yeah. So that phone is almost always in her hand, either the phone or a book.
Yeah,
and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And you can't 3D on a phone doesn't work.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what opportunities do you see in your future that might apply perhaps to other people as well? But anyway, no. How are you using? What's the next thing for you? Do you think?
For me, like in video editing, or me personally in terms of?
For you personally.
Okay, well, I mean, I decided, like, after really looking at the marketplace and figuring out, like, okay, like I don't like where the direction of video editing is headed, and since I'm in the Bay Area, like I don't want to move to LA. Like I've never really wanted to go down to LA, and that I feel to really do well in as a video editor in terms of salary, in terms of like creativity, that kind of thing, you really have to go to a big market. And I feel like that, in addition to everything else, like I decided to make the transition out of video editing just because of all that. And like honestly, and the money is, well, and security of being able to find jobs more in markets outside of LA and stuff like that. Like it just makes more sense for me to get out of video editing and into tech, just because. Also, I'll talk about money if you don't like.
Yeah.
I was working 10 years. I was a senior editor at a company. I was making roughly $100,000, which is, it's okay. I mean, but it's, in San Francisco, that's about the median salary. It's probably less than median salary. And also, like, I feel like I probably wouldn't get more than that. And every job I've seen after that was probably in the 70 and 80 range. So it'd be a big step down. And then, like, I probably wouldn't enjoy the work as much just because it's a lot of corporate stuff. So working on like promos and commercials and ads. And
Right.
stuff like that. So I decided to make the transition to something more tech related. So after talking to a lot of people and then like looking into different industries and stuff like that, I have a degree in psychology. So I was really interested in working with that more. And I found out about the field UX, which is user experience, which is like basically how like something feels when you use it, like a website or a product and stuff like that, and trying to like make it as smooth as possible for the customer. Kind of like editing to a degree, where like I feel good editing is invisible. You kind of feel it. You don't really like yes, there are like flashy edits and those are cool and all, but I prefer like a more subtle editing style.
Right. You don't want to be going, oh, well, that was a really interesting edit. No, you want to be focusing on the story.
Yeah. Like if I felt like if I did a good job as an editor, like you would just enjoy you wouldn't be distracted.
Right.
And
well, I've had a fair amount of experience in and around Adobe's Premiere Pro and After Effects and Auditions people, including I've done some publication of material on, like, say, Premiere's color management, where the head of all of their Adobe apps gave me direct connections with his top color scientists and engineers so that I could get real accurate, detailed information from them to share with the colorist community. And I've also been through a whole bunch of these sessions where you get an email saying, we'd like to talk with you about how you use this part of, Premiere Pro or whatever. And could we set up a thing like for 45 minutes or an hour long session with you on over the computer? And you do, and you have a moderator, and then you have the person that's asking the question. And I've also at NAB been through several of these things where they have a room set up and they have people literally in white lab coats.
Really?
Yes. So and they'll have a big table laid out the size of a pool table that they'll have pieces of paper with stuff laid out, and they're on one side with a clipboard, which these days, of course, is actually a tablet. And the one gal, she had a tablet and she had her little stylus, and she had myself and another guy from one of the big ABC or something like that, who had been doing graphics, Mogert's motion graphics for them, and was talking about various things. And she had all these pre-printed out pieces of paper laid out in this kind of big chart thing on the table. And we were supposed to explain why we thought that should be different in the way it's laid out for whatever it was we were talking about. And if we needed other things, there were pieces of paper and big pen things so that we could write something and put it in. And she was asking questions in her white lab coat with pins in the pocket and everything. And, whether it's on computer or it's live like that, when I go through those, I always have the feeling that like I'm the mouse in the maze looking up at the scientists in their white lab coats going, oh, that's interesting. It responded like that to this stimulus. Okay. But so I've been around that enough with the Adobe people to say that they've got a large marketing and experience section, and they will technically respond to that and say, no, we don't. They don't have a separate track of M&E people, as I call them. Oh, but you better believe Adobe is built off marketing and user experience.
Yeah.
And within every program, you have the engineers that do developers that do the coding and everything, but you also have the marketing and user experience people. And in my experience, if the M&E people want to go a particular direction, that's where they go. They are the ones that really set the overall tone for things. And some of them say, no, that's not what it is at all. But I look at it and go, every flipping time I've seen a decision on that, it goes the direction the M&E people want to go. And if you get one of the devs to talk afterwards, they'll be going, yeah, I didn't like that decision, but what can you do?
Yeah.
So user experience, that's a very good thing to be going into. I think that is, especially if you want to have that solidity of working for a larger corporation, that is a really good thing to be in.
And I feel like it's another aspect of it that's similar to video editing is you're trying to figure out what the audience wants and how to best present your product to the audience via a story. Like, what's the story of your website? What's the general feel of it? Does it feel like you were talking about Adobe? I've been using Adobe since like CS2, so that's been like, good God, like 20 years now.
Yeah.
And like if you've been using it for a while, the controls have always been a little wonky, and sometimes like it doesn't feel natural, and you're like, how do I do this? Well, I have to Google it and figure it out because it's not intuitive. And
so your goal is to work in a place where you can make it all intuitive. I love that.
I would love to one day work for Adobe and be like, okay, this is how you work on making your product better for like video editors and
yes. We want to help him get, I don't know that we can, but at any rate, that would be awesome to have somebody like Ben doing that, working for Adobe. All right. So do you have, if we have people that are watching this and they're going, okay, I don't, what I want to get into video, what 3 tips would you give them? I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't say into video.
Sure.
But okay, for somebody that's just starting out or looking at a career change, maybe, what tips would you have for them?
It's kind of rough. Like if you're okay, so someone first starting out, so they have no connections, no previous job experiences. If they want to do this long term, and I guess it depends on the type of video editing you want to do. If you want to get into video editing because you like the creative process and working on like stories as opposed to like more marketing stuff, you really have to go to a big market like LA or New York or something like that, just because you just make way more connections there. There's way more roles. Like the thing about working for a corporation like I did, when you get laid off or whatever, you don't have contacts at many different companies that could be like that. So you constantly have a stream of work coming in. It's like I got my second corporation job just because of the people I met at my first corporation job. So that made it easy. But like if you're first starting out, then you don't have those connections. So you really want to work on as many jobs as possible and just being like a good person to work with. Like know your shit. Oops, I don't know if you can swear.
I like it.
And know your stuff. Easy to work with, and like follow through and do what you're supposed to do. Like just the very basics. That should be. I've met a lot of editors who don't do that. Like they slack or like they get into it because they think it's a fun like job where you could potentially work on like Hollywood stuff, and It can be, but it can also be very tedious where you're staying up super late on a deadline, like praying the project doesn't crash on export, or you notice one small thing and you have to like export everything again, or you get like a stack of notes from somebody higher up and that you don't agree with, like, but you have to do it because they're higher up.
Yeah.
And like so you really have to put your ego aside because it's not your project. You're working for somebody else. So having that professional mindset of being like, okay, this is my job. I'm gonna do it to what I need.
I like that.
And I guess also like the market is so fickle. You don't know what's going to happen. I really recommend saving up an emergency fund of at least 6 months, being able to like cover your expenses and your rent and stuff like that, because you don't want to be desperate. Right? And like I find
desperation never leads to anything good, does it?
Yeah. And like if you have to like work at a job and like just to pay rent, I feel like it's harder to get back into like video editing or whatever role you want when the economy improves, just because like you're working from a hole at that point. So you really want to make sure you have an emergency fund. And then other than that, you really want to network and meet as many people as possible.
Yes. Network.
Yeah.
And so I think it is possible, since we do not live in a large market, it is possible to network, in this day and age, even if you are not in one of the big markets. But I guess it is easier. It's easier if you can be face to face in the same room, shaking somebody's hand, that there is a help to that.
Yeah.
And that has changed dramatically just in the last few years. The spring that COVID hit, the head of Premiere Pro was working to fly me down to San Jose to the mothership for Adobe, and Premiere Pro is based technically out of the San Jose office. Some of these people that I'd worked with but I'd not met at NAB or something like that, because of course most all of the top people were working out of their San Jose office. Okay, so last January I went down to San Jose for an SMPTE event, a SMPTE event, and I was going, well, gee, I'm going to be there. Who's in the San Jose office I can meet with now? Well, no one. The chief color scientist during the pandemic decided he'd always wanted to live in Hawaii, so he's over in Hawaii now. He's no longer in San Jose. They have color people on their color staff everywhere from India, places in Africa, around Europe, the United States and Canada, Japan. They have more people in one place working on this kind of thing still in the Seattle office, which is home of the PLAPT, as it's called internally, the After Effects group. Well, yeah, I know them, and I could run up there to see that, but that's just a drive up there, just an hour and a half from where our son and grandkids are. But that was really kind of frustrating, because I'd really look forward to that trip down to the mothership to meet all these people. They're not there anymore. Yep. They're all over the place. Yep. So networking is
different. You don't necessarily get a chance to meet people in person as easily in some ways.
Yeah. But one thing that does make it easier is like the virtual thing. There are a lot more resources for somebody first starting out. Like I met Miriam on Lunch Club, and that's a great way just to meet people and talk about like where you are in life. And because there are a lot of people who want to talk about how they got to where they are and that kind of thing. So it's an interesting way to network there. There is a website where you could go to for mentors. I forgot what it's like. Is it APM or something like that? I don't like. If you Google probably like online mentors or something, and it's a free service. There's like people who just enjoy mentoring other people.
Oh, so that's cool.
Like if you want to do a career transition to anything, there's probably a mentor available for that if it's pretty well known.
That's very good advice. I'm going to put up here. Yeah, Lunch Club. Lunch Club is, I've really enjoyed the people that I've met there. They match you up with. I think you might have to get an invitation. I don't know. Can you just join it on your own?
You can. I think it's open to anybody.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, yeah, I had a friend invite me, so that's why I was going, I'm not sure how that works. But they match you up with people of similar interests, and you just have one-on-one meetings and conversations, and it's really been fun.
Mm-hmm.
I met all kinds of interesting people like Ben here. So,
yeah, and I was wrong about that. It's not, ADP list. ADPlist.org is the mentoring one.
ADP list, LAST.
Yep, I'll post it in our chat. So
okay.
See. And that's a place where you can just find a free mentor, and yeah.
Awesome. I'll post it up here too, so everybody can see it. And there.
Yeah, and that's one hard thing about when you're doing career transition, like starting out, because you don't know anybody, you don't have much work to show off, so you are kind of desperate. You want to just start working on stuff.
Yeah,
like that's another thing I tell like beginning video editors. It's like you really just have to start working. Just find, it could be whatever project you want to work on for yourself. It could be
private. Personal projects.
Yeah, or you could do like cut a trailer. If you want to get in trailers, just like find a movie and cut a trailer for it, and like make it known that like this is what the kind of work you're looking towards. If you want to get into gaming, work on gaming videos or something like that. Like
yeah, very good advice. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. So leave a comment if you've got anything to add to the conversation here. We'll see them even if you're watching the replay. So thank you very much for joining us.
Best wishes on your journey. This whole era is such a puzzlement as to how to move forward. What's going to be the lasting thing? Is anything going to be lasting?
Yeah, and we didn't even get into AI, which I feel like is another thing that like a lot of people have to be concerned about, because
people are wondering, is that going to replace editing? I don't think so, not completely, but
it will change editing.
It will change.
I don't think it's going to change it for like movies and television and stuff like that, but it will change it for like the more entry level stuff, like social videos, like stuff for TikTok or Instagram or
right. You just want to get it done quickly, and it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, and a lot of people are like, a lot of companies are already like outsourcing that work to like overseas, like Southeast Asia, because they could get it done super cheap for like $20 a video.
Sigh. Yeah. That makes it tough, but that's the world we live in, is that we've got to be creative, we got to be on our toes, we got to be looking to building connections and building strengths, learning new things, because you never know.
Our other Creativity-Hive partner, Mo, he did a lot of the VFX work in Mad Max Fury Road on trucks. He was part of a group that was sub-assigned to handle virtually all the trucks you see. And so I said, well, when you say trucks, what do you mean? And he went over all the stuff that they did, much of which was done either by him or with like 2 or 3 other people I think he had working under him at the time for that. Did any of them in that chain get any credits in the movie? No. Mm-hmm. What was their pay for that? Enough that you stayed at the computer doing it. Mm-hmm. And that was that. And you're going, so that movie was so heavily based off the skills of people like him. Yeah, didn't get any recognition, didn't get much pay. That's wow. And the movie is fantastic, but
yeah. It looked great. Yeah.
All right. Well, Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
See you next time.